Kweku Nchubwesiako has a way, of summarizing things and sharing his views on them in a very, nice way. And he said that the AGI doesn't get it. At this point, every government policy has just one objective: to secure an IMF program to sustain the government through the next election cycle, hoping to hoodwink Ghanaians to give them another term. The government is not thinking beyond securing an IMF program. Nothing else rings a bell in their ears anymore. Just the same way they didn't listen to sound advice almost 2 years prior to having to swallow their pride and dash to the IMF with Usain Bolt's speed. Then he explains the point. The ones they kill off local production on the trajectory AGI is warning about and making us import dependent, the cedi will need annual injection of foreign currency to avoid depreciation, which is what they were doing before, borrowing from the international capital markets to provide artificial strength to the currency. They would never have gone to the IMF except for being shut out of the capital markets, which caused the pack to crumble. Once we exit the program, they can go back to their old ways and IMF can't say jack. They are not thinking beyond IMF. Otherwise, they will be more concerned about winning us off imports, not the other way around. As long as we are import dependent, we will forever remain in this vicious cycle. Now, my question to my panelists who are joining us via Zoom and via phone. So, Mr. Kwame Pianim, my question is, government clearly knows better. It must be aware of the dire consequences and fears expressed by the business leaders. It certainly won't plan to plunge the already battered economy into more trouble, correct?
I guess that if you are a government and you think that you know better than your citizens, then you are in trouble. You do not. And this is why I'm surprised hearing from the AGI that there was no stakeholder consultation on these taxes. If you take the growth and sustainability, fiscal sustainability levy that the government is planning on bringing on, it is going to be paid into the consolidated fund. And it's for 3 years. It seems as if it's just another lie or fit to hoodwinkle the Ghanaian. If I would have applauded this tax, if the government is saying, look, because of the past recklessness that we've been involved in, our tax revenue is not able to cover interest rate payments, salaries and wages and so forth and services. And therefore, we are putting aside a certain amount, no matter how small, 4 billion, take it as $400 million, that will be used for growth, which means it was going to be set aside for, let's say, transforming agriculture, for agro-processing, for minimizing importation of foodstuff and so forth. This is the beginning. But it doesn't seem to be true. That's what they want to do. Why 3 years? After 3 years, then they would have attained Singapore status, so we don't need the money anymore. If the argument is that we need to raise our tax revenue to a certain level, comparable with other countries, so that we get the IMF program, fine. Let's tell the Ghanaians that's what we are trying to do. But let's go back and say, who are the people who are contributing to tax revenue? The numbers we give are not verified. Cocoa farmers pay about 30% of their turnover as tax. They are paid at best 70%, 60%, 65% of the FOB price of cocoa. The assumption is that Cocoa Board will take 5%, 10 percentage points of that for the input that they supply to them. The rest of the money is to be given to the Ghana government. How many cocoa farmers are there? Are they part of the people who are paying rent? They are not, obviously, because government has set up Cocoa Board as a cost center. They don't contribute cocoa farmers' revenue to the airport. Cocoa Board has now overborrowed for what I do not understand. They are bankrupt now. And government says, don't worry, we've brought the Cocoa Board debt to the government, to the public debt. And that's what we are trying to pay. The argument made by the AGI is that the domestic debt exchange is taking a lot of money from the bank. Their liquidity, the ability is going to go down. How are they going to make the profit for us to be able to take that money from them? And if this levy is based on your profit before tax, why didn't we just add it to the existing tax so that businesses are not being asked to file other administrative of this levy? These are difficult times. Businesses are difficult surviving. We are adding additional administrative burden onto them. It doesn't. We should not do that. The revenue that we are collecting, you bring a lot of uncertainties. When you say oil, gas, and so forth, you know, this government has been in power for 6 years almost. Not one plan of development has been approved for the oil sector. And you are adding an additional uncertainty, whether new ones coming in are going to be subject or even the existing ones that sign agreements with us are going to be subject to this new levy. My suggestion is that, yes, we need to do certain things to get an IMF coverage, but we should not sacrifice growth. We want to bring our debt level to a certain percentage of GDP. The domestic debt exchange, as structured now, declining. Why are we looking only at 3 years when Kenoforiata is no longer in power, when Nana Akufo-Addo is no longer in power? Is that the extent of the life of this country? We have to take our time and look. How are we going to survive? Revenue is not a problem. We didn't have oil revenue. We're surviving. We have oil. We're having problems. The oil of it to be used to support the budget. All this, are these also added to the tax revenue, or we don't add them to the tax revenue? So let's sit down quietly and decide. Where are we? Where do we want to be? And how do we empower our businesses? I'm told the African Continental Free Trade Area, just because the head office is in Ghana, doesn't mean that we are going to benefit. Rwanda, Kenya are busy building ports, airports, which will stock a lot of goods. We just become a captured importer of the African Continental Free Trade Area. We are not going to benefit. The free zones will go to Côte d'Ivoire and go to Togo. We may not benefit, but the time has come for us to sit down. Don't let's just look at the IMF program, where to get the $3 billion to support it. What about cutting expenditures? So let us look at this economy beyond Kenoforiat and America. Look at the economy 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now. That's my advice. The way we are going is not the right. Normally, before you come out with taxes, you come out with the idea. You float it, then there's a green paper, people discuss, and people give the ideas, then the government says, I've heard you. This is my wise person.
Right.
So,
what will be your suggestion further? What should be done in regard to these bills that have already been passed? Because that's their concern. They and like you also share in their concern, perhaps they shouldn't have been passed at all. Now they have been passed. What should happen? The AGI is listing a number of challenges that is confronting industries. It is talking about electricity tariffs that have shot up significantly on 2 occasions, totaling a whopping 56.5% within less than 6 months. They say that the beverages sector cannot absorb water tariff increment over 300%. And all of these, they say, are contrary to government's ambitious, revenue projection, which largely hinges on the performance of industry. So they foresee a contraction in manufacturing and other related business activities. What should be done? These have already been passed.
His Excellency President Adudam Kwame should refuse to sign these bills. Obviously, Parliament did not ask the right questions. I mean, this Parliament is going to go down in history as one of the worst parliaments we've ever had. They don't ask questions. They pass all the bills for borrowing money that led us into this problem. This government, by procurement, interested in just the more projects we have, the better for people to make money. Cocoa board projects, and they are not even wondering about how bankrupt they put the organization in. They are thinking about building a new headquarters. It doesn't make sense. We have to say, look, enough is enough. The president should not sign these bills. The assumption was that when the Minister of Finance has done its work, obviously they have to have an economic model which says after the domestic debt exchange, what is the economy looking like? What is it going to be? Are we going to have depression, low economic growth for the next 3-5 years? And if so, what is going to happen to government revenue? Nobody seems to be looking at that. And then it goes to Parliament. We expect parliamentarians to consult their people, think about it, and ask questions. They obviously don't. They just pass them. So our last hope is for the president to say, thank you, Parliament, I will not sign this bill because it's not good. Look at the excise taxes. The ad valorem, it says 2 US cents. The government tells us, don't dollarize the economy. They are dollarizing it. Can you imagine if the city is unstable? Every week, manufacturers will have to adjust their prices because the city dollar rate has changed. And therefore, your excise, which is based not on cedi, but in dollars, will also change. Does it make sense? We are building inflation into this system. I think that it's not well thought of. The president should not sign it. Parliament should think again. And we should tell the IMF, look, our tax revenue is not comparable with other countries. There are a whole lot of revenues that are not there. Part of the revenue was supposed to be set aside for Ghana Education Trust Fund to build infrastructure so that in case nothing is happening, at least some infrastructures are being built in the schools. What did we do? We went and said, Dachi, borrowed against it. Now that is part of the debt that is going to be pushed, that is being restructured. Electricity, levies, we're paying. And that is also part. The electricity we didn't consume, the electricity the government frivolously does to people and the water they dash to people during the COVID. $3 billion came in. Why didn't you use part of that to cover it? Instead of saying, oh, the government is going to give free water, free electricity. And then that is also part of the debt that we are restructuring now. Look, we should be straightforward with the people of Ghana. We should be transparent. We should not tell a lie. This levy has nothing to do with growth. It has nothing to do with fiscal sustainability. It's a lie.
Before you take leave of us, we are going to China begging, hoping that they may forgive us of the 1.7 billion United States dollars that we owe them. We have a Eurobond, debt of $13 billion dollars. We owe our multilateral, partners $8 billion. The Paris Club countries, $1.9 billion. And then with some other countries, we have $3.2 billion. That's in excess of 20, how much billion that we owe in United States dollars. So we are in extraordinary times. We are not in normal times. Something must be done, and it will not be the usual approach.
My friend, you are talking about extraordinary times. We walked into these times with our eyes open. Do we have floods? Have we have hurricanes in Ghana? Did we have Ebola? What did we have? We had a Minister for Finance who borrowed, and Parliament that supported him to borrow. Borrowed. We are 66 years old as an independent country. We have now somebody from the U.S. Treasury sitting in the Ministry of Finance to hold Ken Ofori-Atta's hand. Ken told me once, we went to school with these same white boys. We are just as good as them. Now he has somebody sitting there holding his hand, giving him tutorials in what? And we have somebody being paid by a Swiss franc sitting in Bank of Ghana. Our governor was out giving advice to other countries. We should be ashamed of ourselves, 66 years old. And we are being recolonized. Why can't the Americans help us by appointing a governor general to come and govern for us? And appoint 5 lawyers so that we can send home the 275 parliamentarians. And those 5 lawyers will make our bills for us. Look, we are matured enough. We should not run to Daddy and say, there is no Father Christmas. Let us make haste slowly, as the Romans used to say. Let's sit down now and say, how do we cut our coat according to our cloth so that every 4 years we don't run to the IMF? Projects. Why projects? Every project in Ghana costs double the price. Why? Because of incompetence and corruption. The German ambassador was telling us, show us we are going to help you, but show us that you are doing something. Cut some expenditures. Have we cut any? We have more ministers than the US, UK, Germany. Who is there? Where is Father Christmas? As far as I'm concerned, nobody should give us any debt forgiveness. They should structure it, we should pay. So next time somebody is borrowing like there's no tomorrow, we'll tell them, stop borrowing because you have to pay. I was hoping that this growth and sustainability levy was going to set aside some money that will create income, a stream of income, so that revenues are being created. We are now having juice manufacturing companies. Now you want to put a levy, SI duty, on the juices. After you've clubbed people and somebody dies, they go to the funeral. You know, when they give you a Fanta, when you go to a funeral, you pay a donation equivalent to that. Now you are going to put levies on Fanta and Coca-Cola, just like on spirits and so forth. And then on these cigarettes, when somebody is changing from cigarettes, you use these electronic devices. You say you are going to put a levy or excise duty also on those ones. Why? You don't want people to transition. And the monies we are collecting, are you going to put it aside to cure cancer, or it goes into the consolidated fund for you to spend on your project? Look, the government should say that the next 2 years, they are not going to make any money on any project. We are all in this together.
Okay.
They should also make sacrifices, like Ghanaians are making sacrifices.
All right. Thank you so very much. Mr. Kwame Pianim is an economist, and you just heard him loud and clear. He's been